You are being watched by each and every one of them at this precise moment. Jaws drop, eyes widen, and they turn their heads. Would you believe that to be the same person? They murmur, unable to find a way to connect your present condition with your past. Having witnessed your metamorphosis, they are utterly taken aback. It wasn't just a change in appearance, it was a total transformation of your entire existence. The remarkable alteration was not just physical. The manner in which you conduct yourself, the assurance in your voice, and the resolve in your eyes, you are completely different from the person you were before. And this is causing a stir. It's a firestorm on social media. People who have known each other in the past are getting in touch. Everyone is curious about your little-known fact. They are observing your every behavior, studying, and analyzing you in the hopes of capturing even a small portion of the extraordinary enchantment that you have produced. When they see what you've become, some of them are inspired, while others are envious. But when they see what you've become, they all can't believe their eyes. The trip you have taken has transformed you into something that they never imagined was conceivable. You are a living example of the transformative power of transformation. Once upon a time, you experienced a sense of invisibility, not because you lacked value, but rather because the world refused to acknowledge your existence. As if you were encased in a thick, suffocating cocoon, you felt as like you were cut off from others, misunderstood, and out of place. Even when you were in rooms full of people you knew, you had the impression that you were a stranger no matter where you went. Even if you talked, the words you said scarcely reverberated beyond your lips. Even if you were present, no one saw you. You felt the weight of loneliness pressing against your chest, something that served as a silent reminder that you were unique. In addition, you learned to shrink in a world that is harsh toward those who are different. Over the course of many years, you were unable to escape the shadows and constantly questioned your own decisions. It's possible that you were conditioned to think tiny, to be nice, and to never take up too much space. This could have been the cause of your behavior. One possible explanation is that it was the unspoken but enduring conviction that you were not sufficient, a conviction that had taken hold long before you were even able to challenge it. At the same time that you were fighting an invisible war within yourself, you watched other people cruise through life with ease. During talks, you became very aware of the judgments, the sideways glances, and the dismissive tones that were being used. After some time had passed, you began to accept what they had projected onto you, which was that you were not deserving of being understood, noticed, or celebrated. On the other hand, it was not just the external environment that confined you, it was also the confines of your own thought. The voices of self-doubt became increasingly audible with each passing day, indicating that perhaps they were correct in their assessment. You might not have been exceptional. Perhaps you were destined to be ignored in the first place. Like a sponge, you soaked up the negativity that was all around you, and as a result, you are bearing burdens that were never intended to be yours. You were an empath, and as such, you felt everything too strongly, including every sigh of disappointment, every unspoken criticism, and every attempt that went unnoticed. On the contrary, you internalized it rather than rejecting it. Your identity is defined by it. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. For many years, you hid behind a mask. In an effort to escape becoming the outcast, you forced yourself to fit into areas that could never have been considered appropriate. In order to make other people feel more at ease, you muted your sparkle. As a result, you have become more compact, quieter, and simpler to digest. Nevertheless, know of how hard you tried, you would never be able to really belong. It was impossible to ignore the lingering emptiness that was constantly present, and there was always a disconnect. From the depths of your being, you were aware that there was more to you than what the world let you to be. Despite the fact that you were aware that you were not destined to remain in the background, you were unable to figure out how to move forward. This was the cocoon, an oppressive, stifling, and unrelenting environment. It persuaded you that spending your life alone was your destiny. In a hushed voice, it declared that no one would ever comprehend you. On the other hand, the cocoon was never a jail. Rather, it was a place of preparation, a place of quiet incubation for something more significant. One thing that the world did not see was that something was developing inside of you. It was a spark, a power, or a force that was just waiting to be released. When the voices of doubt, the whispers of inadequacy, and the shadows of the past drive you so far down that you finally realize the truth. This was never your burden to carry. There comes a time when the weight turns into something that you are unable to bear. The fears that tormented you were never actually yours. Rather, they were planted there in a conscientious and purposeful manner by individuals who were afraid of your potential. Those who advised you to use less light were not attempting to shield you from harm. Rather, they were attempting to maintain you in a subordinate position. The method in which they gently chipped away at your confidence while masquerading as concern or guidance is something that you begin to perceive more clearly. The manner in which they caused you to question your own instincts and ensured that you always looked to them for guidance and approval. The manner in which they distorted your reality and did their best to convince you that you were excessively sensitive and ambitious. It was never about you. It was always about them, their own anxieties, their own failures, and their own limitations that they projected onto you. Everything began with them. Initially, you fought against coming to this knowledge. The idea that you were simply unfortunate and that life was not working out for you is a more convenient explanation to accept. However, the more you investigated, the more patterns you discovered. These patterns included the backhanded compliments, the abrupt coldness as you achieved success, and the guilt trip that occurred when you attempted to prioritize yourself. Each and every instance of self-doubt was meticulously planned out in order to keep you in your place. Moreover, you continued to play along for such a long time, under the impression that if you simply put in more effort and demonstrated your worth, people would ultimately recognize your value. On the other hand, something breaks. It's not always loud when the breaking point occurs. Occasionally, you may experience a moment of clarity that is both quiet and shattering. This is the moment when you look at yourself and realize that you no longer recognize who you have become. Observing the tiredness in your eyes, the hesitancy in your stance, and the waning of a fire that was never intended to go out are all things that you behold. It dawns on you that you have spent your entire life catering to the needs of other people, shrinking down and making sacrifices, all while they have benefited from your quiet. When you reach that point, you decide that enough is enough. It's time to stop using gaslighting. I have had enough of being manipulated. Now is the time to stop handing away your power. You are adamant that you will not allow them to continue to dictate your story. As time goes on, you start to break down the erroneous assumptions that they woven into your identity. Each and every notion that tells you that you are not sufficient is countered by you. You severed the ties that bound you to their anticipations and made your own decisions. You are reclaiming yourself with each step that you go ahead. To tell you the truth, you are already aware that the game is rigged, and if you are paying attention, you are aware that the ceiling is becoming higher. Now let's talk about the actions that we are taking to address this issue. People have the right to demand certain things when they are living by the day at the command of the market, when profit and property rule the land, when they want to be heard, when they want to be held, and when they want to be dealt a fair hand. Right off the bat, it's terrifying. Stepping into the light after having spent years living in the darkness is an experience that is uncomfortable and in some cases even painful. Even now, the whispers of uncertainty continue to linger, attempting to pull you back. Still, you continue to move. Your decisions continue to be your own. When this happens, an astonishing thing takes place. The terror that had before rendered you helpless begins to dissipate. Even though you were under the impression that you never have power, it was actually present the entire time. It was just waiting for you to reclaim it. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull, tap, join, to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. The moment you stop living as a version of yourself that is dictated by other people and step into the truth of who you truly are, this is the beginning of something that cannot be stopped. In reality, the breaking point is not the end. Rather, it is the point at which the true metamorphosis starts. There is no going back once the flame of transformation has been ignited. The previous version of yourself, the one who moved with caution, who hesitated, and who lived in the shadows of other people's expectations, is no longer a part of your life. The thing that ascends in its place is something that cannot be broken, something that is wild. The entire world had the intention of keeping you imprisoned within their perfectly designed box, but you have consumed that box to the point of ashes. You are now reborn from the dead. At first, the transformation seems strange and unfamiliar. As you stand straighter, speak with confidence, and move with purpose, you are becoming more confident. You no longer have the hesitation that used to be present in your voice. There is no longer any uncertainty that used to muddle your thinking. It has been erased. You are no longer waiting for permission to be brilliant. Rather, you are asserting your right to be great, and it feels good. This is not a performance. There is no disguise here. This is the person you were always destined to be a part of. As time goes on, you start to become aware of how much of your history was constructed on illusions. You were never the source of your own dread of being seen. Rather, it was something that was imposed upon you. The demand for validation from outside sources was a trap that was designed to keep you dependent on others. Words that were planted in your mind by individuals who never wanted you to succeed made up the negative self-talk that went on. Whenever you let go of everything, a change occurs in the situation. You can no longer offer an apology for your presence. In order to make other people feel more at ease, you cease downplaying your genius. Stop living your life for the approval of others and start living your life for yourself. The entire world is aware of it. There is a force within you that cannot be disregarded at this time. Those individuals who were formerly uninterested in you are now finding themselves taken aback by your metamorphosis. It is not because your appearance has changed that they do not recognize you. Rather, it is because your energy has altered. You exude a different kind of energy today. It is a confidence that is so unwavering that it shakes the very foundation of those who had doubts about you. An aura that is so indisputable that it demands attention. No longer are you subject to the influence of fear. You have evolved into the force that others are afraid of. This is not due to the fact that you are unkind. There is no reason for you to seek retribution. This is due to the fact that you will not be stopped. The act of rising from the ashes of a life that was once intolerable, of taking every ounce of sorrow, every scar, and every drop of self-doubt, and forging it into armor, is a feat that possesses a certain lyrical quality. Once upon a time, you were the same person who pleaded to be acknowledged, who yearned for recognition, and who worried falling short of expectations. You have destroyed every last trace of that previous self, and what is left behind is something that cannot be destroyed. At this point, the entire world has no choice but to see your ascent. It is impossible to deny that the ripple effect begins to occur the instant you step into your power. When you were once ignored by the world, it now comes to a complete and utter halt. Those individuals who had before disregarded you are now doing a double take, flashing their eyes with confusion and disbelief. Are you sure that's right? Despite their best efforts, they are unable to comprehend the metamorphosis. It is no longer the version of you that they were familiar with, the one that was cautious, hesitant, and uncertain. What is now in front of them is something that they had not anticipated. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull? Tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. The whispers are the first to begin. Relatives from the past, former co-workers, and even those who had previously scarcely acknowledged you are suddenly engaging in conversation with you. The sheer scale of your progress has captivated the attention of some others. Those that are anxious are attempting to make sense of the changes that have taken place. They are keeping a close eye on you, analyzing your every action and looking for solutions. On the other hand, they will not be able to locate them because this alteration did not originate from any external validation, from a fortunate break, or from the consent of anyone else. The source of it was within. Those who once failed to see your potential are now experiencing the consequences of their error. The people who have been ignoring you are now interested in being in your company. The people who had doubts about you are now unable to take their gaze off of you. It leaves them wondering how they could have missed the opportunity to see your potential in the past, how they could have failed to perceive the fire that was always burning beneath the surface. You have no responsibility for their oversight. Some people will be motivated. Your metamorphosis will serve as evidence to them that change is feasible, that evolution is unavoidable, and that greatness can be claimed. When they see you, they will realize that they too are capable of shedding their old identities and rising to new heights. Some people, however, will not take it very well. They are overcome with feelings of envy. Their thoughts are racing as they look for an explanation, a rationale, or an excuse to minimize what you have become via their actions. When they talk about how you must have changed, they will whisper about it as if it were an insult. They will cling to their outmoded notions about you, making a valiant effort to persuade themselves that this was only a phase in their relationship with you. On the other hand, they are privy to the reality that you will never return to the person you were before. This is terrifying for them because it pushes them to confront their own stagnation, which is something they have been avoiding. The lies that they have told themselves, such as the justifications, the comfort zones, and the fear that prevented them from progressing, are brought to light by this. They have come to the realization that while you were escaping, they were keeping themselves confined. They do not rejoice in your progress, but rather view it with resentment. But you should not feel responsible for their discomfort. Just because they are unable to acknowledge your transformation does not mean that it is any less genuine. You are no longer requesting permission, and you are no longer having to wait for sanction. You are the intensity of the storm, the force, and the energy that cannot be disregarded. You have gone from being unnoticeable to becoming indisputable for that matter. There was a time when you molded yourself into forms that were not your own in order to be accepted by others. You lowered your profile, toned down your brightness, and played it low because you believed that this was the price you had to pay in order to feel like you belonged. However, this is no longer the case. There is no longer any trace of that version of you. You have liberated yourself from the burden of their expectations, and as a result, you are now able to navigate through the world without any self-consciousness. Some people will say that you have evolved. Allow them to do so. The way they behave will be as if your self-assurance is a transgression, as if your development is an assault. You are aware of the fact, however, that it was never about you. They were never actually uncomfortable with you. Rather, they were uncomfortable with the things that your metamorphosis revealed about them. They are forced to confront their own anxieties, their own stagnation, and their own failure to progress whenever they are exposed to your light. When they are uncomfortable, they put that discomfort onto you, rather than looking inward. However, their viewpoints are no longer credible in this context. You are no longer responsible for bearing the weight of their insecurities. In order to make other people feel secure, you will not shrink. You are not going to lower your voice in order to allow them to speak over you. You are not going to make yourself less appealing in order to be more agreeable. You have spent a sufficient amount of time confined within a cage that was constructed by their judgments, and now that you have conquered the cage, you will never return to it. Having gained this newfound insight, you have also come to the awareness that you no longer have to maintain poisonous ties out of compliance with your obligations. The individuals who only liked you when you were easy to manage, the ones who favored you when you were struggling, and the ones who loathed you the moment you started thriving are all people who you are aware of. In addition, you let them go. Just independence, without any explanations or apologies needed. Yes, you have changed. Some people will try to guilt you by saying, "You've changed. You are no longer the same person you were before." This is the main point. It's not true that you believe you're better than us today, but you do, and that's why it annoys you even more. You are not going to slow down for anyone who is unwilling to keep growing. If there are people who are afraid of the heat, you will not put out your fire. At this moment, you are totally embracing your power, and if it causes other people to feel uneasy, it is their responsibility to fight against how they feel. You are no longer responsible for providing emotional support to them. It is no longer possible to negotiate your light. Your size was never intended to be a limitation. There were attempts made by the world to persuade you otherwise. They attempted to keep you bound to a version of yourself that was simpler to manipulate and more straightforward to disregard. However, at this point, you are totally linked with your highest timeline, and there is no going back when you are standing in your authority. It is no longer true that you are the person that they originally believed you to be. You have evolved into something that goes far beyond what they could have ever dreamed. This goes beyond simple self-assurance. Not only is this an act of self-love, there is a divine alignment here. Everything in the cosmos has been waiting for you to take this moment into your own hands and take control of the path that has always been yours. Because you are aware that your value is not up for question, you no longer look for the confirmation that you need. Because you have faith that every action is directed by something that is much more powerful than yourself, you no longer have any doubts about the path you are taking. You have finally arrived in the location that you were always destined to be, and everything is now starting to fall into place without any difficulty. It is impossible to deny the effect. Without even making an effort, you motivate other people. The mere fact that you are present is more potent than any words. Because of the energy that you exude, people are pulled to you and intrigued by you. They want to hear what changed and how you carried out the change. They scrutinize each and every action you take in the hope of discovering the methodology behind your development. It is merely a matter of decision. There is no secret. One must make the decision to fully embrace oneself and to refuse to settle for anything less than the person that was predestined for them. It is important to note that this power did not arrive without the need for sacrifice. It was necessary for you to let go of everything that was no longer beneficial to you, including the poisonous relationships, the restricting ideas, and the small-minded attitudes that attempted to confine you. This entire thing was destroyed by your fire. Then, from the ashes, you constructed something that cannot be stopped. You now walk with a sense of purpose. Each and every one of your actions and words carries with them an air of unwavering assurance. Those things that used to set you off no longer have any bearing on your life. Those uncertainties that used to torment you are no longer a part of your thoughts. You no longer have the energy to devote to the distractions that used to absorb you at one point. You are resolute, set in your ways, and unapproachable. The act of stepping into your spiritual inheritance is characterized by this process. To finally become the person you were always meant to be is what it means to finally become who you are. The entire globe is compelled to take note of the situation. You are not the only one. You may have had the experience of being the outsider for a considerable amount of time. You may have felt like the black sheep, the person who never fit in, or the person who saw through the illusions while everyone else slept. You might have harbored self-doubt, pondered the reasons behind your uniqueness, and pondered whether or not there was something wrong with you. But now you realize that you were never meant to be a part of their world. Rather, you were supposed to be a part of something that is higher than it. At this moment, you are not the only one who is becoming aware. In every direction you look, people are emancipating themselves from their bonds. The ones who were always intended to shatter illusions, to challenge the status quo, and to step into their divine power are now doing so. These individuals are the ones who are awakening. You are able to sense it, aren't you? You are being pulled forward by the shift, the energy that is in the air, and the velocity that cannot be denied. Your change is not only for you, it is also a signal to others, a beacon to those who are still ensnared in the darkness. As soon as they see you succeed, they come to the realization that they too possess the ability to break free. Each time you offer someone permission to walk in their own truth, you are granting them permission to do the same. Every time you choose not to shrink, you motivate someone else to stand to their full potential. As a living example, you demonstrate that the constraints that they were taught are nothing more than delusions. It is important to keep in mind that your climb will not go unnoticed. Individuals who previously had doubts about you will be compelled to observe. Those individuals who have ridiculed, disregarded, or undervalued you will be able to observe your rise to prominence, but they will be unable to prevent it. It is now that the voices that attempted to hold you in a small position will whisper in wonder.